Good afternoon, everybody. It's been entirely too long since I spoke with all of you, so I'm going to make up for it with a fantastic success hack that we have ready for you today. But first, I want to remind you all of our mission. We're making sure that everyone who's following this stream is more successful than everybody who does not. And thank you very much to everybody on that front. In particular, also wanted to start this up before we got to our success hack, which is likely to be controversial. And therefore, I wanted to get the good, fun stuff out of the way first. So want to, first of all, point your attention to a recent video that we did with Bree. I thought it was very good. I did a poor job of interviewing, but she had some very fantastic advice on how to become, she is described as a creative generalist. So make sure to check that out. Then also I wanted to get to a reader question, listener question, viewer question. And the reason for this is because want to make sure that I'm rewarding interaction. Some of you know that we occasionally live stream this. If you see us on live stream, definitely follow us there. You get kind of a sneak peek at what's going to be released in video a bit later. The live stream might cut out because the battery is so-so, but we will definitely be taking questions in real time from that. But also because we want this to be an interactive medium. We want all of us to figure out together how to achieve success. So one of our readers, Jen, listeners, writes, "You would look much better with a tie." And thank you. I already look great, so it's tough to imagine looking even better. But there's a very deliberate reason I'm currently not wearing a tie, and that's because I want people to mistake me for Andrew Yang. It's not about politics or anything. And I know it's not likely to happen because obviously he's on a campaign diet, so he's got this weird bulge in his shirt up here. There's a bigger reason why I don't think people are going to mistake me for Andrew Yang, and that's because he's only offering you $1,000, whereas at RezScore Red Balloon, we are offering over $160,000 just for knowing smart people. So make sure to check out RezScore.com and look at the bounty tab in the upper right, or just go directly to jobs.rezscore.com/redballoon, where you can get up to $160,000 for referring your friends to jobs they're applying to anyway. So let's get to it. What's this controversial success hack that I've been waiting weeks to tell you? Well, the theme of this success hack is work-life imbalance, or how to make work the epicenter of your social life. And this flies in the face of all the business press that you read, where people are saying you have to make sure that you create a strong work-life balance. I'm here to argue the exact opposite. So none of these people are generally citing any statistics or facts when they're writing these articles. They're just saying how important it is to have a strong work-life balance. I don't think that's true. I looked into it a little bit, and they keep talking in these articles about how Americans and people worldwide are working longer and longer hours than ever. And if you get down to it, it's simply not true. I spent the weekend looking over the economic statistics, and we posted this as a blog post, which you can find linked from the subsequent blog I put in this, but people are working shorter hours than ever before, almost worldwide. If they're lying about that, should we really trust them? Now, you might also say, well, if people are working shorter hours, then what's the, it kind of flies against my message where you should create a work-life imbalance. But the other thing I found is that there's a pretty strong correlation between a country's GDP and the number of hours that they work. And if I, who's just like a fool with a laptop, who likes playing with regressions on economic data over the weekend, can figure this out, you can definitely bet the people at the World Bank are going to be figuring this out. And they're going to notice that maybe there's something. It's not necessarily causation, but maybe there's something we should look at and see if there's a reason that working longer hours contributes to larger GDP. So not a huge surprise there, but I'm going to go out on a limb and predict that it's going to swing the other direction, and we're going to see more countries pushing to increase the number of hours working as opposed to the recent trend where people are trying to decrease the number of hours working. So I would argue that even if that's not true, if I get this wrong, you can still get a lot of value from going the exact opposite direction, swimming against what all your peers are doing. If everyone else is leaving work earlier and earlier, and you're staying just a little bit longer each day, you're probably going to be successful at work. So, as many of you who have been following this for a long time know, we don't just like to present success hacks or present tips for success. We actually evaluate them according to a 3-step criteria. The 3-step criteria that we use is this hack A, going to be producing convex benefits? B, is it going to be producing diffuse benefits? And C, is it easy to implement? And those first two I will touch on briefly, but it's pretty obvious that if you're making work the epicenter of your social life. That is, if you are replacing your non-work friends over time as they kind of drop off, there's always an attrition in friendship. If you start replacing them with making more friends at work, it's pretty obvious how that's going to be having some convex and diffuse benefits at work. In the blog post, we actually list a lot. But the thing that's, I think, really interesting about this is the convex benefits that you might get from staying an extra hour at work is pretty substantial. So say that you start making one additional friend per month at work, or working one extra hour. Focus mostly on that. Just if you make one extra friend at a big company, all of a sudden Metcalfe's law is going to kick in, and you're going to have a stronger and stronger network than you would have had if you didn't. And obviously, as Metcalfe's law basically says, that the number of the size of your network is increased relative to the square of the nodes in it, or it's a power law. So if you have 2 friends at work, your power of your network might be 4. If you have 8 friends, your power becomes 64. So you can see where this would accrue benefits to you over time if you are just staying an extra hour and making an extra friend at work. But then the other thing that I think makes this easy is humans are generally hardwired to want to socialize with people. So you have some kind of internal need to socialize. And if you're getting that need fulfilled while you're at work, you're going to make work someplace you want to go. You're going to make work someplace that you want to stay. You're going to be a little bit happier having dinner at work with some friends because you genuinely enjoy it. And you don't even necessarily need to talk about work. It will certainly come up. It's just incredibly valuable to build stronger relationships at work. I don't think anyone's going to question that. If you do, I'd love to chat with you about this. And then the other thing I think makes this particularly easy is a chart that I link in the blog post, which I found fascinating, which basically points out that as you go through your 20s into your 30s, 40s, 50s, your friends are going to be dropping off anyway. So you're going to be losing friends whether you employ this hack or not. So why not get out ahead of it and start trying to replace those friends, or take the few friendships you do have and have it overlap with your work. If you don't have to go to work and then see a set of friends to get everything that you need in terms of your life needs met, you're actually combining 2 of these buckets into one. If you combine the friends bucket and the work bucket into one bucket, that might actually end up leaving you more time for whatever is in the other bucket, which is most likely family. So you definitely take a look at the article and tell us what you think. I wanted to, of course, raise some of the potential objections people might have to this. Because we want to be very upfront about it. And the first off is that nobody in the entire world should take advice on socializing from me, because my social life is non-existent. Also, another point that people brought up when I suggested this to them is that they said that if all of a sudden you become like the social butterfly at work, does it mean that you're going to be so distracted you're not going to get work done? And I don't think that's credible. But I do go on this tangent in the post, and I will touch on it briefly here. And if people are interested, I'll do a separate whole stream on this, or a whole separate post on this. Because generally what you find is that people at work are not actually judged on their performance, as sad as it may be. We have all these brilliant, we talked with a very analytically savvy HR department, and they all but confessed to us that it's almost impossible to measure performance. They've tried every single metric. And this is a little bit shocking, and you probably understand this a bit though, because there's a few real world analogs. One is people who work from home are more productive, and yet I haven't actually found evidence for this. I'm looking for it. If you have, please send it to me. But people who work from home don't seem to get promoted as often, or at least that's the perception. There's a perception that it can actually hurt your career. Now, if they're more productive, why is it hurting their career? It's because people are judged at work based on the social aspects. Do people like you? Do people want to be around you? Do you generally have like a strong network, and do you kind of command respect within that network? And as disappointing as it may be, your performance almost doesn't matter. We've heard cases of developers who almost never check in code, and their code they do check in is terrible, and yet they're very well respected and kept around at work because people just like being around them. So it's not necessarily the thing you want to hear if you've been focused on how do you become more productive at work, and how do you increase your output, and how do you do really good quality work. But this is the game that we're all playing. You have to play the game that is being played, not the game you wish was being played. And the game that's being played is, do people like you? So if you're socializing at work, that's actually going to be better. And also, I think it's a little ridiculous to say that you're not going to be able to get your work done. I think most people are pretty adept at kind of shutting their brain off. No one is going to be socializing 8, 10, 12 hours a day at work. It's just not even possible. So that's one of the possible objections. The other is if there's maybe conflict of interest. Like, what if like you're in this like work situation where, you know, you are not giving candid feedback to somebody because you like them. And takeaway to have in this article is just forget about that. That's way down the line. Deal with that problem when it comes with it. We'd like to hear from you. It seems a little ridiculous to not employ this success hack with all the benefits that we're describing, because maybe one day there'll be an uncomfortable situation, because you'll figure out a way to deal with that uncomfortable situation if and when it comes up. And then the last thing that we wanted to address briefly is just a few special considerations, because obviously this is not a one-size-fits-all thing. And when we talk about this with people, they raise some specific points which are good, and I wanted to address them. First is people who are introverted. This might not actually be easy to implement. That's one of the 3 pillars of a successful success hack is this easy to implement. So if you're introverted though, because you know everyone's a little bit introverted, even the people who are most extroverted still need time to recharge their batteries. And you actually look at it, most people generally fall in the middle of the introvert-extrovert spectrum. And quick plug, of course, if you upload your resume to RezScore.com, you will see where we classify you on the introvert-extrovert spectrum based on the language you use in your resume. But outside of this, everybody who is even a little bit introverted still has needs for socializing. Even the most severe introverts will have needs for socializing. So we say that in the way that introverts still make friends, they might just be a handful of really strong friends that they spend a lot of time and effort investing in that relationship. Just move that person who might be from your college network to someone who is in your work network. Find someone who you think is really valuable and interesting and start trying to get them to go to lunch or go to afternoon coffee with them. And then the other kind of point that's raised is people who are entrepreneurs or people at small businesses. And being an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur myself, I can certainly attest to the value of this success hack. But I think the point is more if you are at a very small kind of organization and you don't have the ability to have a large enough social network, or maybe there's just not enough people in that network that you're able to make some friends. And what we say to that is that you don't just have to look inside your work to employ this success hack. You can look at meetups that might be related. So if you're a developer, go to hackathons, go to events and talks about programming languages or new technologies you find interesting. That will still be valuable to your current job and to future jobs to be building that network and to be meeting people who will have a lot of overlap with your professional life. Or if you are an entrepreneur, and I shouldn't say entrepreneur because most entrepreneurs should be coding nowadays. If you are a biz dev person and you can't write a lick of code, then just going to these meetups anyway is going to be a phenomenal way to grow your network. You're going to learn more. You're going to meet more people. And even if your role is maybe not biz dev, maybe you're kind of an in-house marketing person, but you start going to these external meetups and you're at a small business, what's inevitably going to happen is you are going to actually start bringing in business to your company. As implausible as this might be to believe, you are going to be delivering sales for your company, and they can't get rid of you. Then you're going to be the most important person. You're actually going to make the company grow. So I've laid out in this success hack why we think it's very important that you should be creating a work-life imbalance, and you should move everything that's in your social column to work. We look forward to hearing your feedback with this. We always do. And we look forward to speaking with you all later. Thank you.